So every lecture we shall record, and then I will upload it on Moodle for you to access at your leisure. So let us begin with what is ethics. What do you think ethics is when you hear that term? Yes, Joseph?
Acceptable behaviors or rules that are acceptable in society.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. By the way, you've just talked about acceptable behaviors, and I've just thought of something. I have not introduced myself. I think that's not acceptable behavior. Thank you, Joseph, for reminding me for that definition. So before even we begin, you said it has been a bit panicky. The morning didn't start well. But anyway, let's start well. My name is Sheba. I am a lecturer with Uganda Matters University in the Faculty of Science, Department of IT. I'm a PhD holder in the field of ICT, but my first degree was in ethics and development studies. So that's why I was given this module to teach. I mostly teach master's students, but because of I think that the diploma class that is graduating, they needed to have this class quickly. So that's why I came in. So I normally focus on ethics in an IT perspective. So this is what you will see because you're IT professionals in the making. Now, before I continue, can I know who I'm talking to? Can we start with Aaron? Aaron, who are you? Are you in year 1, year 2? And if you're working, let us know.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Aaron.
I'm Aaron Osele, doing diploma in IT. I'm a year 1 student.
Okay.
Currently, doing some facet of my concern work.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. Then Ivan. Here is Ivan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ivan Ahereza. I'm a student in Diploma IT Year 2. I'm a police officer.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you, Ivan. Then there is Call Me By Name. Who is Call Me By Name?
Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Patrick Warugembe, and I'm a diploma student I'm in year 2. By God's grace, I'm a teacher.
That's so good. That's good to hear. Thank you, Patrick.
Yes.
Let us hear from Jonah. Jonah, are you there? Jonah, are you there? It seems Jonah has gone somewhere else. Can we hear from Kadu?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Kadu Seleve. I'm in year 1 doing diploma in IT.
Thank you, Kadu. Can we hear from Nicholas?
I'm Sabi Nicholas. I'm in year 2.
You're most welcome, Nicholas. Can we hear from Prosi?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Prosi. Prosi has just greeted and stopped there. Joseph, can we know, are you in year 1, year 2? Are you working?
Good morning, Brother Lens. I'm Trevor Joseph Semakula. I'm year 1. I think that's all. I'm a businessman.
Ah, that's good to hear. Francis, can we hear from you? Hello, Francis. Is your network not supportive at this time? Francis, your network is really poor.
So now I'm in year one doing IT.
Okay, I think Francis, we've just picked a few things. I think your Francis, I think your network is a bit jumpy, but we understand. Maybe let's hear from Emmanuel. Emmanuel, we're doing self-introduction.
Yes, my name is Odiga Emmanuel. Yeah, I'm doing diploma in computer science and IT.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you everyone who has come in. There's also Samsung SM something. I don't know who that one is. Okay, anyway, let's continue.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Sorry, you're not clear, Samsung.
Okay, like I'm Patrick Walid, and my network is not a bit okay, but I'll try to maneuver around.
Okay, no problem. Thank you for joining us. So everyone, thank you for joining. I see all of you are you've joined this academic course. Thank you. I'm also, like I said, I'm a lecturer, but on the side, I'm also a farmer. So I'm also just like you, doing something else apart from the being in the academic side. So let me. I had asked a question. What do you think ethics is? And we had a good response from Joseph. Does anyone remember what his response was?
Acceptable behavior.
Acceptable behavior. So many times when we look at it, we think, this is just for, people who are the religious or things like that. We don't see it in IT. But if you've taken time, those who have looked at the case studies I gave you, you see that the two cases that you have there, they are very, very much talking about acceptable behavior. In IT itself, at the you all go to the Masaka campus, not so?
Yeah.
Yes, and the campus has a lab. It has a lab. It should have Wi-Fi. Should anyone just come on that campus and join the network and start using? Is that acceptable? Using the
No.
network? Yeah. For you as students, if you access the network, you're using the UMU email, is it acceptable for you to send emails, whatever content may be, whether you're insulting someone? Is that acceptable behavior?
It's not.
Yeah. So you see, ethics covers so many things. And you as ICT professionals, as IT professionals in the making, you need to be aware of what is acceptable or not acceptable. One of the most important things that we learn about about ethics is how to make good decisions. One of the mistakes some people make, they think that ethics is about being holy. No, Holiness is by God. Ethics is a human thing, just the way we can live together. Yeah. I remember the director of the Fort Portal campus was presenting to National Council of Higher Education and said, how do we tolerate one another? Eh? So tolerating one another, how do we live together in an acceptable manner? So that's what ethics is. Eh? Now we want to have an introduction of this particular module. So essentially, we are looking at what ethics is, yeah, what ethics is, but particularly its place in technology, in science and technology, because that's where we are. So we don't want to look at ethics in its broadest sense, the way a student in ethics and development studies would look at it. We want to look at it as IT professionals so that we can concretely apply it where necessary. Okay? So we want to understand the basic concepts in ethics. So as much as we want to learn it, we want to understand where ethics sits in the IT profession, we must first of all have a good grounding of the concepts of ethics, the concepts of ethics themselves. And these we shall find especially in the theories of ethics. Yeah, we have 3 basic theories in ethics. We shall look at them, and these help guide our ethical codes of conduct, what is acceptable for us. Then we shall look at the practical application of these ethical theories to ICT. So we have 3 concepts here. We have science, we have technology, and then we have ethics. Yeah. In the intersecting part here, science, we know what we're going to look at it in a little while. What science is, what the overall understanding of science, the overall understanding of technology, and then ethics. Now, in the center of that, you have a society. So you as IT students, IT professionals, you're gaining skills. Which skills are going into a certain society? Okay? Which skills are getting into a certain society. So take an example. As an IT profession, you may get a job in a company, some organization. You are a member of the IT, you are a member of the IT department in that organization, in that firm. And you're going to set up systems which are going to be used by both you and others, okay, within that organization. There are rules and regulations around it. So as an IT profession, you're going to be using this technology and this science to support this society or these individuals. But you need to have codes of conduct that govern you. So take an example. If, let's say, Aaron joins this organization, he's managing the email system. And then one day, one of the bosses says to him, I want you to get into the email account of so and so and check for emails that he or she receives. Technically, Aaron can do it. Ethically, should he do it? Do you see the question here? On the technical side, Aaron can do it because he's the one managing the system. He obviously has administrative rights. He can actually get into this person's email and read them. On the ethical side, is this something he should do? Yeah? Do we understand here the intersection where it comes in?
Yeah. Yes, madam.
Okay. So what is science? Yeah? Because this is where we lie as IT professions. So it's pure knowledge. Most people refer to it as pure knowledge, systematic, organized body of knowledge. So if we are looking at that, science is the one which tells us what are living things, what are non-living things. Science is the one which tells us about our anatomy as human beings, how the body works. Science is the one which tells us that if I eat these foods, they're going to give me these nutrients. Science is the one which tells us that once you get this disease, then you need this treatment. This is the body of knowledge. Now, most people will say science being being pure knowledge. Even our technology that we're using right now, what we're using Zoom, yeah, to have synchronous. It's a synchronous learning mode of teaching and learning. It's a technology. It is science. What developed this type of technology is science at its purest form. So we can look at it as something pure. This is pure knowledge. And it does not have it's unrelated to value, and it is the people consider it to be unbiased. Yeah? But however, as much as we want to say it's pure knowledge, we cannot say science can do something good or bad. But this knowledge that created this technology, the person who created that knowledge it's people who created that knowledge. It didn't create itself. And once you have people involved, then a bias has to come in. Okay? So take another example of the atomic bomb, the science behind the atomic bomb. It's there, it's a science. You can say it's unrelated, it's unbiased. But when a person comes and harnesses this knowledge and then uses it to destroy lives, then you can't say science is unbiased. Yeah? Because the people who use this knowledge are making decisions to make either to do good or to do bad. Same thing with technology. So technology is an offshoot of science. So technology is the application of the knowledge that we are talking about in science. Again, one may say technology is unbiased. Just like if someone says if you get gunpowder and spark it, it will cause an explosion. That's the science behind a gun. But if I get this gun and point it towards somebody and shoot, me as a human being, I have taken an action. So the two technologies, as much as people may want to take them as being unrelated to ethics, they are human beings who deal with this technology, and those human beings can make good or bad decisions. Okay? So what then is ethics? What then is ethics? Ethics, we can look at it at 3 levels. The very first level, let me first put this down, of how do I conduct myself? By asking that question, I'm asking that what action is morally right or wrong? That's the first thing that ethics helps us with. What action is morally right or wrong? And this question can be simple, but then it can also be very difficult. I'll give you an example. I remember a case we were told when I was an undergraduate student doing ethics and development studies. And there was a case which was given to us. Do all of you know the story of the Holocaust? Do all of you know the story of the Holocaust?
No, we don't.
Okay.
No, don't.
Did you ever hear of Adolf Hitler?
Yes, Adolf Hitler, yeah.
Yes. So Adolf Hitler,
In the feeling.
yes, Adolf Hitler and his political party, which was the Nazis, they organized. They made a very aggressive strategy to eliminate the Jewish community, especially the Jewish community that was in Europe. So they would go to people's homes this was during the war, the Second World War. So they would go into homes, especially it was in Germany, in Poland, and a number of European countries, I think predominantly German, Poland, Austria, and a number of other countries. They would go to these homes, collect anyone who was Jewish, any family, any family that was Jewish, and they'll take them to these concentration camps and either starve them to death or gas them or whatever it is. But basically, it was a point to eliminate the Jewish race. So there was one particular case study which were given where there was a mother who was in her home, and as the Nazis were at her door, coming in to take her and her baby, she decided to suffocate her baby rather than have the baby be taken by the Germans and be given a much more cruel death. So the question there would be, was her action right or wrong? Yeah. The same question would also go for, have you heard of euthanasia? Have you heard
Madam,
of
all
that?
those terms are scientific. We have never
Yeah.
heard of them.
You guys, these are things that are happening now. So anyway, euthanasia is something that is happening right now, especially in Europe. And a number of countries have legalized it. So euthanasia is the belief. I'm not saying it's my belief, it's a belief by some people, that if somebody reaches a certain age, a certain stage of illness, it would be more merciful to end their life than
That's right. I'm in support of that.
Pardon? Pardon,
Even
Patrick?
I believe that's right. I should support that instead of someone suffocating that. Reaching at a
Okay.
certain point in their life, yeah, I support that.
You support it. Okay. But let's continue. Let's continue and discuss it a bit, and then we see how far it would go. So in Europe, they have legalized it, where they say at a certain point, when somebody is going through suffering, it is important that we end their life. It would be more merciful. Now, Patrick, I'm going to give you real life cases from the news. Now, in the Netherlands, this was legalized. When it was legalized, there was a certain young lady. She was 29 years old, very healthy, nothing physically wrong with her. But she had been suffering from depression, and she felt her life should end. And they ended her life. So, Patrick, who is it to measure what is real suffering and what is not?
Okay,
Then,
when it comes to that scenario, yeah, for me, I believe that depression stuff can be healed, but there are some diseases like maybe let's say cancer, like taking someone into that deep process. They are cutting off their leg, and after cutting off their leg, still that disease will spread. Like for such cases, I'm in support of that. But
now,
like the
also,
depression.
now the thing, Patrick, is who is it that measures this is total suffering? This is the ultimate. Who is it that has that right to say?
Okay, like.
Because you see, like the example of the 29-year-old, for her, in her perspective, the depression couldn't be healed in her perspective. And you see, if she has decided, who are you to tell her that this can be healed? You see?
Madam, I'm trying.
Yes, Nicholas.
If the casualty is in the stand of saying me, let's do it, who has the right to say no?
If the what, sorry? If the one who is suffering,
yeah,
is who has the right to say no? So then you see now, Nicholas, if that is the case, then maybe at this very moment, maybe me, Sheba, have a problem, and I see there's no way out, and I say, let me end my life. Ivan, you have something to say?
Yes, madam. To me, I think deciding for someone is not good, but to me, I think I'm sorry to say this, but let's use an example of an accident.
Yes.
To me, if to get an accident, I'm sorry to say this, and let's say like they cut off my arms and the legs. I rather die than remaining without my legs and the arms. So I
Really?
think somebody decides for himself, it's better, but it's not good for someone else to decide for you.
It's also not good, and also but it's true. Someone might say, I really don't want to live beyond this point. But also, the thing about these situations, I was listening to a program. Again, it was in Europe, because most European countries have legalized euthanasia. And there was this one gentleman who said that there was a lady who had aged, she was sick, just like Patrick was saying, I think it was cancer or something. And she was being cared for by her daughter, sorry. And this lady made that decision to end her life. So the good thing, the hospital where she was, there was an ethics committee, and there was a doctor, psychologist there. So the doctor went in to ask her, why do you want to end your life? Then she said, I don't want to be a burden to my daughter. That I see her caring for me, it's a burden. So the doctor called in the daughter and asked her, is it a burden for you to look after your mother? And the daughter, she got so emotional. She said, my mother looked after me. It's an honor for me to look after her. So when the mother heard that, she automatically said, no, then it is okay. Let my daughter look after me. So there is such a thing as palliative care in healthcare, whether you have cancer, whatever it is. And even when someone is being treated with cancer, this is now for Patrick, even when someone is being treated with cancer, doctors have a point where they come and tell the patient, you know what, your cancer has reached this stage. Rather than going into treatments where you suffer more, let us look at palliative care, meaning let us look at easing your pain until your life comes to its natural end. So there are always solutions. Yes, Nicholas, you have something? Nicholas?
Yeah, yes, madam.
Yes.
I was once, I am of a, okay, I'm aware of that scenario. It ever happened to my friend. He narrated to me. Though in Africa it's not yet common, but he told me that they had their elder brother, he had some cancer. I don't recall of the disease, but maybe something of that. I was still in high school by the time he just me that it was like our brother was so like they could spend a lot of money in the hospital. Around 5 m a day, so that money can do other things. So the brother was like, guys, let me do what? Let me go.
Yeah.
He was removed off the oxygen support system. Then he spent like 2 days, but he was free. Like, I'm going. They came, celebrated, but the guy went later, saving the family out of that burden of spending money that can do other stuff.
Yeah. So in that case, you actually avoid euthanasia is when you're actually killed, when they inject you and you die. But in the cases where someone is terminally ill, you simply allow them to go peacefully. I also just like Nicholas, I also have a friend whose father was also terminally ill. He had HIV, then he was found with cancer. But good enough, the doctor was very sincere. The doctor simply told her that, you know what your father has is not going to heal. You bring him to hospital, first we shall bill you. So he told her, just take your father home, befriend one of the health workers, just to give him comfort that he's not in pain, and until that time of his life to come to its natural end. So whatever the case, the mental illness part, I mean, health depression can be treated, but you find people, especially in Europe, someone jumping in front of a train because he or she is depressed. So the thing of legalizing things like euthanasia Is it morally right or wrong? You know, one person can say it's more merciful, but there are also questions. But that's ethics in general. Ethics never gives you a right answer for everything. So that's one. Yes, Nicholas.
Madam, about that, you in euthanasia, I haven't got it right. Is it the doctor to say, like, let me end his whole life, or the patient also accept?
Exactly. It is the doctor together with the patient to end the life. So let us say I have cancer. And then instead of allowing me to die naturally, you come and inject me with a deadly thing and I die.
Without my consent?
They can do it with or without your consent. There are cases when maybe someone is in a coma or something where the relative says so. Then there are cases where the patient says, end my life. Like even there was also a particular case I saw again. This was on the BBC and it was in the Netherlands. It was a couple, a man and a woman. These two decided, because the man, I think he said he had long-term back problems and the wife had Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is when you begin to forget. So they both decided to end their lives. So their diseases were not terminal. Even someone who's losing their memory can still live on. Even though you have a persistent backache, you can still live on. But these two decided to end their lives. So that's what euthanasia is. So it's not the same as when, it's not the same, Nicholas, as when, let us say, somebody with cancer that is untreatable says, let's stop the treatment, because it's not where even the doctor advises you, because most of the time it's the doctor. A good doctor will advise you. Of course, there are doctors who are just looking for money, but a good doctor will come and tell you, you know what, this thing is irreversible. You have terminal cancer. I have a niece whose grandmother, just I think over a year ago, she was found with cancer, and immediately she was found with the cancer. Immediately the doctor told her children, this cancer is advanced. No treatment will help her. And she died within 2 weeks of diagnosis. So she didn't receive any treatment. They didn't end her life, but her life ended naturally. That's very different from euthanasia, where somebody says, makes a decision, end my life with a lethal injection. Yeah, something like that. It's not the same thing as someone switching off a life support. That's different. This is when someone deliberately ends your life. Do you get the difference?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the question: is it morally right or wrong? Someone may say, is that a merciful killing, really, really? But then also you look at the woman in the Holocaust period who decided to suffocate her child. Was that morally right? But again, is it also morally right to judge her because she was in a very, very difficult situation? Would you ask that question? That would also be, that's the thing about ethics. Ethics gets you thinking. So I think that's where the question of the second thing comes in. What makes a person good or bad? Yes, Nicholas.
Madam, for that scenario, I once watched a movie called Welcome to Sobibo. It's more of that Hitler stuff.
Yes.
They saying they used to abduct them from there, and then they bring them in some camp. They like boil them in water. They shoot them. So I think what the lady did was, to her, it was right.
Yeah.
Even what I know what was there, I rather like do it to save my child from that suffering.
Yes.
Me.
No. Madam, to me, what the red did was not right, because no one has a right to end someone's life, according to God, because we all believe in God.
Yeah, that is true. But of course, I think the issue is we don't know her state of mind. She made that decision in a very difficult situation. So, of course, we all know nobody has a right to end life. But, as human beings, emotions come in. And when someone is in a very difficult situation, truly it takes a grace of God It really does take a, even Ivan, again, it would come to the question. I think even Ivan, the question also would come with a subject of abortion. Yeah.
Yes.
Abortion is a subject that is very touchy, very difficult. When people talk about abortion, someone will say something like, is this a child in the womb? Is this a human being that is in the womb? Someone will say either yes or no. There are those who argue that it's a woman's body, so I can make my decision. But okay, the child in the womb, is that the woman's body or is that a separate human being? Take an example. I was in my mother's womb. Is my body hers or is it mine?
It's hers, I think.
No, it's my body. Is my body hers? Even when I was in her womb, was my body, did it belong to her or did it belong to me? It belongs to me.
The body belonged to you.
Exactly. When I was in my mother's womb, the body is mine. So does she have a right to, thank God my mother didn't abort me, I'm here, but would she have the right to abort me? Then there are those who will say, there are those who argue that, pardon, Patrick?
Like, madam, what I'm not getting is like you were in her body, so she had all the rights, but however much she didn't have a right to abort you, but still, like you were in her body, so she had like take the control of that stuff.
Thank you, Patrick. Yes,
No,
Francis.
you were in her body, but you are not independent. She had the right to do anything.
No. Yes, Francis, then Nicholas.
Yes. According to me, we are saying ethics is acceptable behavior.
Yes.
And we are on the planet of Earth when we are created by God. So we should first put anything in mind that what we are going to do, is it acceptable by the one who put you there? So I think even though you were in your mother's womb, your mother never had a right, or that behavior she could do wasn't accepted by God. Yes. So even if, for my sake, even if someone is ill to an extent of dying, no one has a right to end that someone's life without God's permission. I think it's God. It's only God who can say that I have accepted this behavior. Let me take back my person that I put on the earth.
Yes. Thank you, Francis.
Can I think?
Yes, please.
Yes, this is Patrick once again.
Yes, Patrick. Yeah.
When I think the mother has no right to abort.
Yes.
Because if she aborts, it can first of all affect her psychologically. It will keep on haunting her for the whole of her life. Yes, and she might also get some complications. So she would be in fear also of aborting.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
thank you, Patrick. You see how ethics really gets you thinking about some of these things. Should I do this? Should I not do this? And there are arguments on all sides, on every single side of the spectrum. But anyway, so that is where the second thing comes in, of what makes a person or something good or bad. What are my values? So that people have different values. Even people on the abortion subject or euthanasia, everyone has different values. So, for example, the 29-year-old woman felt that life is not worth living if I'm depressed. Let me end it. But there are people who suffer from depression on a daily basis, and they still continue to rise up every single day and do something and work and bring value, even when inside you're dying, but the person still persists. So that person's values are very different from the other one who says, I'd rather my life ends. Yeah. Then the final thing ethics helps us is how to draw the correct conclusion about what we ought to do or what kind of person we ought to be. Yeah. How to draw that conclusion. And this is where the theories come in. The theories are the ones that help us decide what action should I take. And the different theories give us different guidances for different scenarios. So ethics is not set in stone. It's not set in stone. That is one of the things we must understand. Ethics is not set in stone. You will make different decisions depending on the current situation. on the different situations that arise. So we shall see some of those things later. So some characteristics of ethical issues. We have moral disagreements are common. So we've already seen from our discussions, yeah, on ethics, on abortion. Everyone has different views and things like that. I remember particularly when I was doing my undergraduate degree, one of our professors, remember she's Professor Deirdre Carabine. She was from Ireland. She really loved her animals. She had her dogs, and she really loved them. And in our class, everyone knew. So I remember one of our classmates, we were talking about the subject of using animals in medical experiments. We use how they use mice to test for diseases and for certain things as they are testing maybe new treatments and diseases. And then, so like the students knew her love. I remember this one girl decided to poke her and said, but I mean, we human beings are greater than animals. So they should use them to test for our sake. And this lady, I remember she was almost about to burst with anger. But I knew this girl said it on purpose, simply because she knew the values are not the same. And I remember also questions like homosexuality came up during our class. And I remember one of the things that really got me thinking about homosexuality. The lecturer asked us a question. Why do people have sex? Why do people engage in the sexual act? And most people's answers were to show love and pleasure. Then she asked a question. So she said, what's wrong with then a homosexual act? If two men love each other and they want pleasure, what's wrong? Isn't that a good question?
But it's against God's will.
I think that the primary question is we had not answered why is the sexual act there? Why, for example, Ivan, why did God give us the sexual act?
The major reason there was to produce, I think.
Thank you.
It was not about produce.
That is a very good answer. Let me also give you another one. Why do we eat? We eat primarily. Yes,
to grow. Eat to grow.
The primary reason is we eat for the sake of living. Yes. That's the primary reason. The secondary reasons are enjoyment, for pleasure. But the primary reason is for nutrition. Now, if somebody decides to eat primarily for pleasure, what happens? What happens?
You can end up getting stomach complications, you get some diseases.
In other words, that's where you hear people who are obese.
Yes.
Those people who are obese, those who are overweight. In other words, we say the person gets a disorder. Not so?
Yes.
So likewise, people who have sex, let's say primarily for pleasure, what happens? That is where you get addictions to pornography. This is where you get prostitution and so on and so forth. So that is where, Ivan, once you bring in God, then you ask, why did God bring this act? It's not enough to just say God, but why? This is where philosophy comes in, when we understand why is this thing there, so that I bring it into its proper order. But then again, Ivan, there are those who don't believe in God. So everyone, you must know, there are those who don't believe in God. So ethics, we shouldn't point ethics strictly to God. Ethics, there's holiness, yeah? And all of us are called to holiness. There is holiness, and then there is ethics. So even in the ethical side of things, when we're looking at the ethics, we're not pointing to God. But of course, as Christians, we know what is my value. Me as Sheba, I know what is my value. But at the end of the day, if you find, let us say, if you find a married couple, a man and a woman who have come together and they love one another and they enjoy the sexual act and they procreate, there will also be a gay couple, man and man, woman and woman, who love each other and enjoy the sexual act, but of course don't procreate. You can't deny their love. Okay? You can't deny what they feel and experience together. You can't deny it. But ultimately, you also can't deny that this is a disordered act. And this is where ethically we look objectively at the two, and although this one is against God, but it's yes, it's a feeling, it's a relationship, disordered as it may be, but it's a relationship, but it is disordered. You recognize it, but in relationship to God, it becomes automatically disordered. So ethics helps us to look at these things objectively and then make that final decision. As much as there are disagreements, there could be those disagreements, but how much more can we by how much can we disagree? And then to simply understand how far. Now, again, if you look at the sexual act, you look at between a homosexual couple, between a man and a woman. Yes, there is love. Yes, there is pleasure, but then there is the lack of procreation. And that automatically, in the eyes of God, gives it its own disordered nature. You still agree with this person on this side, but ultimately, I remember there was a bishop in England who was arguing, they were questioning him about why the church is refusing same-sex attraction. He said, same-sex couples, and he said, yes, we recognize this love. Yes, we recognize they love one another, but it lacks procreation, and a human being is supposed to procreate. Yeah? A human being that human beings were created to procreate. But this one doesn't. It's not creative in any way. And he said it with a smile. He was saying, yes, there is love between a man and a man and a woman and a woman. But that lack of creation is the disordered part. So if you may disagree, but by how much are you willing to disagree? And this is where the church then says, we cannot bless you because this is a disordered relationship. So this is where ethics comes in. So what are moral theories? Yeah. So the moral theories, these are what we are going to look at a little bit later. The moral theories have a set of principles. They're a set of principles, and these principles help one to make a decision. Yeah, these principles help one to make a decision. They are a practical guide on how someone can make a decision. So let's just move a little bit further. So, what is a moral action? You have a person who carries out an action, and this action has a consequence, whether good or bad. Yeah? This person can be, we can ask a question, this person, can we say this person is morally good? Is this person courageous? Is this person kind? And so on and so forth. What is the motive of this person? What is their character? What is their intention? What makes an action morally right? Yeah, what makes an action morally right? Now, let's go back to the cases I gave you. There was the case of Mary, who was faced with the dilemma of, should she buy a license for her Windows program or not? Do you remember that question? Should she purchase a license for her Windows program?
I think the right decision for her was to purchase the Microsoft Office.
The right decision for her. Would it be a right decision for you, Ivan?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. Now, here are some also ethical arguments. there are ethical arguments. Well, and this one, let me start with the background story of Uganda Matters University. You know, I was a student in Uganda Matters University. I was one of the pioneer students. You know, UMU opened in 1993. Our group was the third to join. We joined in 1995. So you can tell how old I am. So anyways, at that time, ICT was very, very minimal. But then I left, then I came back. I joined as working as part of the academic staff in 2004. So at that time, the ICT labs had really grown. And at that time when I joined, the then Vice Chancellor, who was Professor Lejeune, went to Microsoft to see if they could get a university license for the labs. And they found the price they quoted was exorbitantly high, much higher than a university in Europe or US could pay. Yeah, much higher. And this was now, they were asking this amount of money from Uganda Matters University in Uganda, a developing country. So when Professor Lejeune asked, why was it so expensive? They said, oh, because Uganda Matters University is not known, so they cannot give that discount. Now, in terms of fairness and justice, how do you charge a university in a developing country and at a price 10 times higher than a university in Europe or the US? Is that ethical?
Madam, it is not.
No, it's not.
So you already see. Then now, in that time, this was when the open source movement came up. And in that time, there were all these arguments that why would a private company as profitable as Microsoft charge a license to poor nations, yet it is now considered a human right for every human being to have access to ICT. Now, if you're saying every human being on the planet Earth should have access to ICT, but you're asking those who are poor to pay a license fee, is that ethical? And aren't you cutting them off from accessing these ICTs?
But madam, if somebody has done bad, it doesn't mean that you also do it. And
No,
it is not a mandate that everyone should access ICT. There are people who even don't know how to use them.
Yes, that is true. I'm not saying that using pirated software is good. No, what I'm saying is it if we say that it is ethical, it is a human right. Take an example. It is a human right to access healthcare. Therefore, it becomes a responsibility for a government to provide affordable healthcare. This is why you find governments are struggling to ensure that there's a healthcare facility, at least in every parish. There's some kind of health facility.
Madam, if you talk about that, now in this issue of Mary, first of all, Microsoft is it is a business for an individual. It is not communal that it is supposed to be for everyone. So for him, he has a right. It's like when somebody sets a business, he has a right to put his own prices.
Yes.
So if you don't afford, you just leave and you are not entitled to go ahead and pirate it.
Yes, that is true. Now, pirating is definitely illegal. It's definitely an illegal act. That one is not something that can be justified. Yes, Nicholas. Nicholas? Hello, Nicholas. You have your hand raised. Good morning, Nicholas.
Good morning, madam.
Yes, please, Nicholas.
One time I was listening to a study program on radio CBS. I was listening to the topic. 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 I was li Then he mentioned you have a theory that states on this nation, on this universe, compress the poor ones. Just like we're seeing America attacking Iran.
Sorry, Nicholas, your network is so poor. Sorry, Nicholas, the network is so poor. Maybe let's wait for that one to first stabilize. So, but anyway, I think we have the general idea of that special subject of pirated software. So we have three kinds of theories, and we have consequence-based, sometimes referred to as utilitarianism, consequence-based theories. So this one basically looks at the consequences at the end of the act. Have you ever heard of something says the end justifies the means? That kind of theory. Then we have deontology and then virtue-based. We're going to discuss each in detail. Let me first see, there are some charts here. I want to look at the charts. Okay, that's that. I think that's just basically it. So we have theory ethics versus practical ethics. Now, the term applied ethics is misleading because it seems like it makes you think that there's some kind of formula which automatically gives you a certain result. No. Ethics is a case-by-case basis, and we don't have a clear-cut answer to a specific moral problem. Yeah? There's no such thing as a top-down approach. It's not the same thing as I have malaria. If I go, they give me Coartem, I'll get better. No, that's not the case. It's a case-by-case basis that one looks at. Yeah. Ethics is more of a bottom-up approach, and we shall see this in the different situations that scenarios that we'll have. Yeah, that there are different scenarios that people can look at. So cases have their own voices. So each different case has its own voice. So let me just give you an example. Let us say I'm not able to teach you today. As a lecturer, I'm not able to teach you today. Then I'll say, can we pick another date, maybe tomorrow on a Sunday? Then we can have a vote to say how many people are willing to be taught on a Sunday. And out of 16, maybe 5 say they are willing and the rest say no. So if you have 5 people out of 16, then we can't really have the lecture on Sunday. We must get a date where the majority say yes. That is utilitarian or consequence-based, where it will be acceptable for the majority. Now, what if I say, you know what, guys, I really don't feel like marking. As a lecturer, I'm just going to pass all of you without any assignment, nothing. And all of you say, yes, 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 madam, that's right. However, that is wrong. In the profession of teaching and learning, a student must be taught, assessed, and marked and graded. Those are the principles of the profession of teaching and learning. So as much as it may be acceptable and it may be pleasurable for me who doesn't want to mark, and for you who you don't want to be tested and graded, it may be pleasurable for you, but it is not ethically right. So you see the two situations. One, I have to use deontology And the other one, I have to use the consequence-based theory. Yeah. So this is what we mean by a bottom-up approach. Each case has its different voice. These ones are, what are the challenges to morality? One, egoism. Yeah. I have my own self-interests. So because of my self-interest, I'm ready to forego ethics. There was a particular case I had in the master's class, one student who told us, I was asking them about ethical dilemmas that they had experienced. And this particular case, the student told us he worked for a man who had started this trading in cryptocurrency. And this man would ask this gentleman who was working for him, who was managing his server, to go in the back end and manipulate the value of the cryptocurrency. And because this one had access to the back end, this one, he accepted. He would give him like 200K, 200,000. You do this for me, I will. And the guy did that. And in the end, this man, of course, defrauded so many people who bought the cryptocurrency based on these fake value figures that the IT profession was entering. So that is a typical example of egoism. Yeah. Then there is what we call relativism. So relativism is where it says it depends on me, what I feel like, then also on people's culture. People's cultures differ. So there may be a relativism, this thing of saying it depends on me, what's good for you is not good for me, and what is good for me is not good for you. That is another thing that challenges morality. You may find someone who has no problem in taking a bribe, and then another person for whom telling a lie is really a challenge. However, there's the issue of a lie. I remember there's a gentleman I met. For him, telling a lie was something he did not accept at all. And that's it's a good moral standard to have. But however, I asked my students at master's level, because quite a number of them are married. I asked the men, how many of you would tell your wife that the food she cooked today was not nice? How many would do that?
I would do that.
You're a very brave man.
Me too, I can tell her.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, like in a way of discussing issues, not in a like in a bad way, but in a way of discussing issues. I will.
You guys?
Me, I can't
For me,
tell her, but she can see my reaction.
She can.
madam,
No.
for me,
Yes,
for me, I
please.
was told never to do that by a female gender.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. You know, as women, our feelings are on the surface. There are certain things that we don't say in front of a woman, like the food you cooked is not nice, that dress you're wearing, or something
Okay,
like.
you can bring it in that way. Like you try to pack it in a way that she can understand in a better way. Maybe like telling yesterday's meal was better than today's meal, like that, but like not like directly that today's meal was not good. No, not that way.
Madam, you can't say her directly. You just to bring it in, like you are conversing, you are talking about other things, then you look for the way of bringing it. Like, madam, if I have my wife and we are going somewhere and she has chosen a certain dress, don't I have a right to tell her that that dress is not good and she looks for another one?
Okay, maybe you can say it in a nice way that I see that one doesn't flatter. The other one is flatters your figure a bit better. Yes, that one is but of course there are certain things which I mean, like, you know, there are things we never tell a woman, like you've put on weight. You know, there are things you tell a woman and that day she will not eat lunch and supper because you've just said that comment. There are certain things we just don't tell women. But then these ones are not so important. Let's go to, no, I wanted to bring about, so let's first talk about the business side of things. So this is important. Ethics in a business environment. Now, any business, its primary focus is profit, how to maximize profit. Yeah, any business that any company is going through, they must be profit. Now, when you bring in ethics, ethics, on the other hand, brings another perspective. But let's first look at the profit side. We have an economic responsibility. Any business is there to produce goods and services for the value of society. Like we were talking about the issue of proprietary software and paying a license. When Microsoft goes into business, their objective is to make money. That is the primary objective. So when they are making Microsoft, the objective is to ensure that if they're providing you this service, pay me for the service which I've provided to you. Then we have the legal side of things, the legal responsibility. So the legal side of things where a government defines laws that management is expected to obey. So any management is, for example, this side where I am, I'm a tea farmer. So as a tea farmer, we have a factory where we all take our tea, our green leaf for processing. And this tea factory processes and then exports. Because it exports, it must pay tax to URA. But for some time now, the tea sector has been going through a crisis. So the factories are finding it very, very difficult to pay their taxes. But the arm of the law still comes. URA comes and it will freeze your account simply because you have not paid your taxes. That's the legal responsibility. Then we have the ethical responsibility. Yeah, to follow the generally held beliefs about behavior in society. So this is the as much as any business is there to make money, has the legal responsibility, then there's the ethical responsibility. So take an example. Ethical responsibility would be, how do you treat your customers? Yeah, do you give back to them? Are you sincere and transparent with them? Your shareholders, the shareholders of the company, there's that ethical part. The staff members, are we keeping their data in a secure manner? Your IT professionals, you're responsible for the data of the organization. This data may include personal information of your customers and your staff members, the employees of the organization. Is the data being kept securely, that not an unauthorized person cannot access that data? I gave you the example that, let's say you're working for a company and somebody asks Aaron, the boss asks Aaron that I want to look at so-and-so's emails. That is unethical. So the ethical element must come in. Yeah, the ethical element must come in. Then we have the discretionary responsibilities. This is where we have the social, corporate social responsibility. This is where a company may say, oh, let us construct a borehole for this community. They have limited access to safe water. I remember Uganda Breweries did that for a community nearby where I am. That is a corporate social responsibility. It's not an ethical responsibility. It's simply a voluntary obligation where a company says, let's do this for these people. Yeah. So the ethical responsibility, the ones that are extremely important are the economic, legal, and the ethical. Yeah. So as IT professionals, there's that ethical part that you have to play. So in the responsibilities of a business, we start with the most basic, which any company must have, is the economic and legal. As Ivan pointed out, if Microsoft is selling its Windows software, if I'm using it, I should pay the license. Even the legal part says I must pay. Then there is the ethical part. It rises slightly higher. Now, most of the time, you find the ethical part is being neglected in exchange for the economic part. Yeah, where you find, let's say, an organization decides to sell a product that is less than its actual value, or rather, let's say like safety things have been not been considered, an exorbitantly high price, or maybe this organization is mistreating the employees, underpaying them, overworking them, maybe using child labor and things. Those are all unethical, sometimes even illegal acts. But the ethical part comes above the ethical part. Then you have the discretionary part. So these two, discretionary and ethical, are what we refer to as social responsibilities that any organization must be responsible for. So the primary purpose of that social responsibility is to gain social capital, the goodwill of key stakeholders, our customers. We want this organization to be seen as a good organization. There are some people who will work for an organization simply because of its social responsibility. Someone will say, I will work for this person. I want to work for an organization such as this because this is how they treat their customers. This is how they treat the community. And simply because of that, you will join them. So then there are also people who come and partner with you simply because of your social responsibilities, how you take yourselves ethically. Yeah. Look at, if you look at universities like UMU and UCU, one of the things that UMU and UCU are stand out for are for its ethical standards. Yeah. I remember one time we had a football match, I think with Champogo or something, and we lost the game. And I remember one person at the UMU community said, we thank God we lost the game, because if it was them who had lost the game, for sure a fight would have erupted. But they were saying the UMU football team fans are very well behaved because of that ethical. I hope that's still the case. That was some years back, but I think that is still the case with our UMU teams and their fans. We do not display acts of hooliganism, do we?
Never. Not really.
Yeah, so that is simply part of the UMU social codes of conduct. Yeah, that's simply part and parcel of that. So what are the benefits of an organization having a good social responsibility codes of conduct? It may enable them to charge premium prices and gain a brand loyalty, like UMU and UCU. They've gained that brand loyalty simply because of behavior. Yeah. Generate enduring relationships with suppliers and distributors. You attract outstanding employees. Like, again, there are some people who simply will say, I will work with this organization simply because of their codes of conduct. Reasons for unethical behavior. Someone may be unaware that their behavior is questionable. You may lack standards of conduct. Now, you may find, take an example, especially for IT. Have you ever heard of something like an ICT policy? Have you ever heard of something like that? That an organization has an ICT policy? Have you ever heard of that? Things like ICT policy? Has anyone heard of something like that?
No.
Okay. Normally, any organization has an ICT department, like UMU has one. And I believe they should have an ICT policy. So the ICT policy basically spells out some of the basic standards of conduct UMU users should have. So, example, how do I use my email? There are certain things that may or may not be acceptable when you're using UMU email. Who has access to UMU's network? Data that is kept by the university. Who has access to it? How is it classified? There is data that is public, there's data that is protected, then there's data that is private. who has access to what. Okay? So if an organization lacks something like an ICT policy, that brings in that may introduce unethical behavior when using ICT. Then we have different cultural norms and values. What may be normal for you may not be normal for another. Yeah, I'll give you an example. When I was doing my master's, I had a friend who was Japanese, and this gentleman, there was a gentleman who was for him, he was from I think Tunisia or Algeria. He was from Algeria. So he comes and asks this lady, he tells this lady of a situation he had of, that there was an American company that was selling yogurt. So this company wanted to get into the Japanese market. So they got a group of Japanese people, a group of people from Japan, from within the country itself, and they gave them samples of this yogurt. And these people tasted, and they would, the Japanese are very polite. They would smile and nod. They would ask them, do you like it? They would smile and nod and bow down. They gave them the second sample. They smiled and bowed down, like that. Then these people thought, these guys like the yogurt. They put the yogurt on the market, and it completely failed. No sales. So then they later on found out. So this Algerian gentleman was asking this Japanese lady that, why didn't they just say they didn't like it? And this Japanese lady, she laughed and she said, in the Japanese culture, it is extremely rude to say, I don't like this thing. So they have a way of saying it. The Japanese will understand, but a foreigner will not. Yeah. So different cultures and norms may create may create some unethical behavior here and there. Then people have different values between businesses and stakeholders. So you may find there are some companies which are focused on making money and nothing more. It doesn't matter what you feel like. It doesn't matter what you're going through. My job is to make money. I remember I had a trip because of my involvement with farming. Sometime last year, some of us tea farmers were sponsored by government to go to Dubai. We were looking for new markets because of our failed markets in Mombasa. So when we went, I sat with a lady, a Ugandan lady who was going back to Dubai. She works in Dubai. So we're talking about the working experience. And she told me that, in Dubai, you can't afford to fall sick. You fall sick, you'll be charged. They will charge you for falling sick. So you see, that is a different value people have. To them, probably in the Arab world, as long as you're not Arab, you're not supposed to fall sick. So you see that the values are different. The way they view you as a worker is quite different. Then she was telling me things like, she told me for her, she worked as a security guard, but she told me those who work as domestic workers said their work is so difficult. I said they'll tell a woman, small woman, to carry a whole fridge, and she must carry. Whereas, let us say here, me where I am now, if I'm in the compound here, you have different men. You have ladies in my compound. You have ladies and men. A man will not sit there and see a woman carrying something. The man will automatically come and say, no, let me carry. That is the norm. But now, if in the Arab world they will see a woman carry, they will tell you carry a whole fridge, and you're a woman. Something like that. So those different values are the different cultural values and different values and how we view business can create unethical behavior. Now we have what we call levels of moral development. Let me move a bit further so that we see these actual levels of moral development. These ones, most of them are repetitions. I want to look at particularly. Yes. Okay. These ones. This is what I want to look at. Different levels of moral development. We have the first stage. Yeah. Sometimes referred to as, let me first move this down, as the conventional stage. At this stage, someone will behave because of the fear of punishment. So this is the child stage. This is where a child is forced to conform to behavior because there will be some kind of punishment that will be mitigated in case you misbehave in a certain way. Yeah. Then the second stage is where there is an exchange. You behave well, I'll give you this. Yeah. Still, this is very much at the stage of children. Yeah, you behave in a certain way, you'll gain this kind of benefit. Maybe you'll have more time on TV or something like that. Then we have the conventional stage. This is where we have the adolescents and young adults, where somebody wants to be part of a certain society. You want to be part of a certain community. Let's say even you see at university, we dress in a certain way because this is how my colleagues dress. We speak in a certain way because this is how my colleagues speak. Things like that. So I want to be part and parcel of this society. So I pick up certain values because I want to conform to the current society that I'm in. Then
Madam, I think that is generally bandwagon effect.
Yes, please. Yeah. Then stage 3, where your primary concern is being nice and gaining approval. So that kind of falls even in the other one, where you're worried about how people will judge me, how do I look? Then we have stage 4, where we follow order, law and order orientation. We have rules and values that we must follow because we want to maintain a certain social order worth preserving. Yeah. So this is a little bit older. And here you may see people talking things like, oh, this is the time to get married. This is the time to have a job. This is the time to drive a car, certain things, things like that. Then we have the post-conventional moral authority. Now, this is where somebody conducts themselves based on the values they have assumed as human beings. The highest level of principles people live by. In this stage, a person is concerned with universal ethics, not necessarily cultural, but universal. The person looks at themselves as an individual. What is it that is right or wrong about this situation? What does my conscience say? I don't care what somebody thinks or feels about me. This is my stand. I'm ready to stand individually and alone. This is the highest level of ethics that you will find. So here you find individuals like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther Jr., Pope John Paul II, Nelson Mandela, those individuals who stand out because of their moral codes of conduct. And that person is willing to stand by that standard no matter what. So very few people reach this stage. It's a very difficult stage to attain. Yeah? This stage of ethics where someone stands individually and alone. And it can be a very lonely place, but usually they are guided by their faith or moral authority. Yeah. I remember a situation when Nelson Mandela, I think he had already retired from presidency. Now he was just a retired statesman, and he was very ailing. He was sick. And he went to, where did he go? Was it to England or something? And he was made a state visit to the US. And I remember then there was President Bill Clinton. By then he was no longer sitting president. President Bill Clinton, and there was another person, I think it was President Bush. When Nelson Mandela got off the plane, Bill Clinton and Bush were holding him. They were supporting him because he was really frail. But the commentators were saying that in reality, these two are leaning on Nelson Mandela. Because at the time, Bill Clinton's wife had written a book, and Bill Clinton's presidency had been mad with so many scandals. He had had affairs while he was in office, and I think when the wife wrote the book, she brought out all these scandals again. Bush was under attack for the wars in Iran and Iraq at the time. So the commentator was saying that in reality, as much as Nelson Mandela was frail and they were both supporting him, in reality, these two needed him more than he needed them, because he stood out as a moral figure, and a morally upright figure for what he did with apartheid. Same thing with a person like Pope John Paul. At the end of his life, he was so frail, but in reality, he was the strongest giant simply because of his stand for moral issues on things like abortion. Yeah, the way he stood up for abortion, he stand against communism. There was a CIA agent from the US. Of course, CIA belongs as an organization under the US government, and he said that there's nobody who the greatest contributor to the fall of communism was Pope John Paul II. Simply his moral upbringing. In Poland was ruled by communism, but Poland was the only country that defeated communism without firing a single bullet. And the primary reason was Pope John Paul. He continually rallied the Polish community, telling them, you see the communist style of government, communism basically kills you. It comes and kills the very social fabric. Take an example. One tribe in Uganda which really has a very strong cultural backbone is the Baganda. They have a very, very strong cultural backbone. Now, what communism would do is to come and tell you, is come and destroy whatever is culture among you. You will stop using your names that are tied to a particular clan. You will stop kneeling down. You will stop using your cultural dress. You will stop the language. Yeah, basically killing whatever is defining you as a culture, as an individual. But Pope John Paul started with rallying the social community, telling them, do not allow them to tell you who you are. You know who you are. That was the stand of Pope John Paul, and he basically defeated communism in that way without even using the gun. So this level of ethical principles is the highest level, and we normally see this in people who have attained a certain level of maturity. So we can ask ourselves, where do we fall as individuals? Where do we as individuals fall? Where is my ethical standing in this? Then we also have what we call the feminist care ethics. So here it looks at ethics between men and women. And they normally say women were normally ruled by sympathy rather than reason. And men use more of reasoning than feelings. I don't know how far true that is. Would you say that men do not have feelings or do not have sympathy for others? I don't know. But that is the thinking behind it. They will say boys generally
do what is right, however much.
Pardon?
We always do what is right, however much we don't want to do that. But provided it's the right thing to be done, we always do that.
That may be, but don't girls do that? Take an example. There are mothers who stick with their children through thick or thin. Don't women do that? One may say it's sentimentality, but also another one. Yes, Patrick?
They are even approximating to zero, actually.
Really?
Madam,
No. Yes,
Madam,
please.
Yeah.
Ladies, us men, we do also have feelings, but the level, as certain things, the levels differ.
The levels differ.
Just like you may find that feelings for men are around 25%, then women is 75, around there. So I'm just suggesting.
Let's hope you're right, but that is the thinking. So for Gilligan's, what she says that men look at the justice voice and women look at the care voice, listen to the care voice. So for men, it's about justice, and for women, it's about the care voice, that desire to maintain a relationship. So in other words, they conclude that women tend to minimize personal pain, they avoid separation and isolation, and often are selfless in accommodating others. So these are just some readings. So this was an introduction to ethics. Here we have a few readings, a few suggested readings. I'm going to upload these slides, and then also first the recording, I normally first send it to ICT, then ICT uploads to YouTube, and then I provide the link in Moodle. But the slides, I will upload them immediately. Next Saturday, I want us to look at the theories of ethics, and then after that, I'll give you your first assignment. Okay? It should be a group assignment. Is that okay?
It's okay.
Okay.
Yes, it's okay.
Okay. Do we have any question?
Madam, before you leave,
Yes.
you talked about the people who participated in the discussion.
Yes.
And you say there are only 6 people, but there are some other people, including me.
Mm-hmm.
For us, we want on the other part of reply, we put our options, our views on that part of reply. So I
okay.
don't know.
Okay, it's okay. If that one is there, then I'll use that.
It's okay.
Okay. Yes, Aaron, you have a question or comment?
Just a simple request.
Sorry?
Okay, I'm just like requesting, madam. I don't know for us to not like do anything. Is it possible if you could submit the work?
Okay, I will extend the time of the forum.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Okay. Do we have any other question or comment?
Yes, madam.
Yes, please.
You talked of the communism theory.
Mm-hmm.
How does it differ from the socialism?
How does it differ from socialism? Communism and socialism.
Yes, madam.
I need to read a bit about that. It's not really part of ethics. It was just an example about Pope John Paul. But I think that communism is an offshoot of socialism. But essentially, what communism does, communism says that there is no such thing as individual right to ownership of property. So essentially, this is what communism says. Let us say, Nicholas, you are talented, let us say, in programming. You are extremely talented. But what communism says is that whatever you gain from programming must be shared with everyone. Or let me also give you another example. I grew up in a family where it's a very big family. So we have some family members who are really good at making money and others who are not. So communism says that one who is so good at making money must share all his property, must be redistributed to all other members. So Nicholas, in other words, what communism says is that there's no such thing as individual ownership. Whatever you own as an individual must be redistributed to everyone else.
Okay, madam.
Yeah. So it basically doesn't recognize that there are individual talents, that someone can be very good at making money, things like that. Those talents are basically not recognized. Yes, please. Semakula, you have a question?
Yes, I had a question.
Yes.
So, madam, for scenarios whereby maybe culture and religion are conflicting and the person is caught up in the middle. For instance, among the Sebes, there is a culture practice there for female genital circumcision, and that is a practice that has to be done, right? Culturally, it is allowable and it has to be done to all the women. But then,
Yes.
what if this woman is a Christian and Christianity doesn't allow that? While the culture, whatever the culture part allows it, what is the most ethical way to handle that matter?
Thank you. That's a very good question, Joseph, that you asked. I think the primary question is this woman, what is she willing to give up? What is she willing to give up? I'll give you a scenario. This was an actual scenario that happened. There was a woman who rejected female genital mutilation. Her mother rejected it and she rejected it. But at a certain point in her adult life, she chose to go back and do it. Why did she do it? Because she said she felt ostracized because she was not circumcised. So now female genital mutilation in general is illegal in Uganda. I think in all nations it's an illegal act. But women continue to do it. You see a mother doing it to her child, and so on and so forth. Why do they do it? Because this is the way they have a sense of belonging. So for this woman, if she says, it depends on which value is greater for her, to be part of a community or her Christian value. Which value is greater for her? Yeah. There was parts of the slides which I missed, but later on we shall bring them back. The issue of whistleblowing. We shall have another discussion because this, especially in IT, is extremely important. Did you ever hear of what was this man's name? I forget his name, but we shall discuss it later on. There was a man in the US who blew the whistle on the US government's habit of collecting data of people and spying on people. And when this man did it, he was branded a traitor, and basically he had to leave his home country simply because of that. Now, for him, the question was, it was unethical for a government to collect this kind of data on its citizens. But again, he worked for the CIA. Was it CIA or NASA? One of those companies, one of those agencies. He had a moral duty to. He was bound by a code of not snitching on his agency. So there was that dilemma. Now for him, the question was, which value was greater for him? To be loyal to his company, to maintain a privacy, a secrecy code of conduct, or come out and state that ordinary American citizens were being spied on by their own government. So, Joseph, it comes now to the question to the individual. For this woman, which is greater? To be part of this community, to participate in this thing, and so therefore be part of the community, or follow your Christian faith and be ostracized? So there, Joseph, you're coming to the sixth stage of ethical growth. Which stage do you want to be? To be part of the society or stand individual alone? Do you see where the situation comes in?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And all of us get to that stage. All of us get to that stage in life. All of us, we will get to that stage in life where you are faced with a situation where you need to make an individual decision as you. And you say, before man and before God, I can defend this decision, why I've chosen to do this. Do we have any other question or comment?
Madam, I think the same thing applies to judges.
Yes.
A judge faces a situation whereby he has to make a judgment, whereby that judgment takes somebody to execution, and that judge maybe is a Christian, and in Christianity they don't allow that, because we all know that it's only God who is supposed to, who says that, okay, it's only God who decides for somebody to die or not. So the judge also faces the same situation. He has to follow the laws, and at the same time he has to follow the Christianity.
Yes. Okay, do we have any other question or comment?